Hi, my name is Charlotte, and I'm going to walk you through the portfolio piece that I completed through CarrerFoundry as part of their UX design project. Now, the project is called Olive, and the objective was to allow health-conscious individuals to log into a responsive health and well-being portal to record their health and medical information and access general physical and mental well-being features. I decided to focus on mental health because of my own experiences of mental health and those with people around me, plus the COVID-19 pandemic and the fallout as a result of that has resulted in many people experiencing negative mental health. So I thought that this would be a very poignant time to bring out an app like this. Let's go in and have a look. Hello and welcome to my portfolio piece on Olive, with a lovely hero image at the top and the main research question: how might we help people with mental health concerns feel in control? Which is very important because if you do have mental health concerns, you can sometimes feel very much out of control. So if I scroll down too far, there we go. As you can see, my client was CarrerFoundry because I did this as the UX design program that they run. My role was everything: UX designer, UX researcher, UI designer. Underneath my responsibilities, top to tail, the beginning and the end of the project, all of it, and some of the tools that I've also used to complete it. Let's keep moving on through the portfolio now, past the lovely product demonstration that you're welcome to check out on YouTube anytime you want, and move down to the problem. So as I'm sure you've figured out already, the problem is that inputting and accessing information can be frustrating and time-consuming and confusing. So as you know, Olive wants to be the centralized source where you can put all of your mental health resources so that you're not looking everywhere for it. And let's move down to the design process. Discover, define, ideate, test, and iterate. We know it's not a linear process, particularly the last 3 or 4, which can be very cyclical all throughout the project. But there's the design process, and let's move into the first phase, which is discovery. The discovery phase was a super interesting and insightful part of the process for me because I was able to see what's currently out there in the market and how I could draw from it and improve upon it. So through competitive analysis, I had a look at 2 apps, one which is more of a medical app, which is Evergreen Life, so that might deal with your medication or your counselling appointments. And then the second one is Semvelo, which deals more with the personal side. Maybe you want to track your habits or maybe your mood. So as I've made pretty clear, Olive wants to be a mold between both of these types of apps. So I did a SWOT analysis on each one to see what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are, so that I could develop my product based on the needs that they either give or maybe don't give. After doing the competitive analysis, I conducted some surveys and interviews, and as you can see on the left, those are my goals, and on the right, some survey questions. Now, 27 people conducted the survey, and then I chose 3 people who are potential Olive users as interviewees. And then I created an affinity map to gain my key insights. So from that, it's obvious that everybody wants to take control of their mental health in some form. So there's definitely an opportunity for a product that successfully combines what people want or need to support themselves in feeling better. Another thing that was quite interesting is that people use both digital and non-digital means to improve their mental health. So for example, they might want to go out for a walk. How would Olive bridge that gap? And also, people really wanted to get a sense of accomplishment because that helped them throughout the day and helped them to manage their mental health. So what kind of productivity features would be useful to encourage people to use the app more? So I think this is really the stage where it came together that Olive needed to be a centralized place where people could do all their mental health stuff. The define phase was important in that it allowed me to empathize with the people who would be using my app. So, based on the user research that I conducted before, I created 2 primary personas that I looked at often as I was creating my app. After that, I completed some task analyses and user flows that helped me to understand the user's needs better, as well as the complexity of the task at hand and the business requirements. And that was my key pieces of learning, that the business requirements will always come very highly when we are designing. After that, the minimum viable product was developed, as well as the information architecture. Now the ideate phase is one that I really enjoy. It could also be called the iteration phase because you go through so many iterations at this point, but it's the time when those solutions for that problem really start to come into the fore. So obviously we start with our favorite paper prototypes, which means we can create lots of different versions and make changes very cheaply and quickly. Then move on to those mid-fidelity wireframes. Now I used Adobe XD for this, but I am going to be starting to use Figma. And through research and further feedback, the wireframes went through some further iterations, so it developed the layout, the UI, and the flow. Now the importance of this next bit cannot be emphasized enough. This is the testing phase, the phase where all of the solutions to the problems are being tested. So I conducted 6 interviews with potential users, mainly about the utility and the usability. So I picked 5 scenarios which they were to go through. Through the results, I put them into an affinity map. Me and Miro, we are like this now. So I could figure out the patterns and the hierarchies, which you can see here, lots of observations and thankfully lots of positive quotes. But in my friend, the rainbow spreadsheet here, we focused mainly on the errors, which was the most important to fix and how we think we could solve that. So the key findings were as follows. All of the users made it through, very luckily, but obviously there were things that they spotted that I didn't, which were here. And we did some iterations of it to try and fix the issues that users said that they had. Finally, we go to the iterate phase. Well, I say finally, but we know that design is cyclical and that this would happen a number of times throughout the project. But for argument's sake, this is the final piece now. This is when the visual design really comes to the fore. We get to do those high quality prototypes, as well as to really refine the solutions to those problems. Now, I wanted to make sure that the app was quite streamlined, clean, and modern. So we made sure that everything was consistent throughout, including the illustrations, which added a little bit of a fun element to it. A design system was created in order to allow anybody who wanted to create further iterations of the app to have a good basis to work from. And then here are some final pieces of the design. Now, these are definitely the elements that I asked the users to check earlier. So you're very welcome to have a look through these at your leisure. And then at the bottom, we have the final prototype, which you are welcome to come to my website and click anytime. This was a very important part of the project for me. It allowed me to look back at all the learning that I have done throughout the 10 months it took me to do this project. Some of the things that I learned were that design decisions should always be justified with concrete evidence, that you have to focus as a UX designer on the functionality first before the way that it looks, that you need to always keep the business objectives in mind because it's not just about creating a nice design, that iteration is king, never stop iterating, and that you should look back and consolidate on the work that you've done at all times to make sure that it is consistent. In future iterations, I would definitely like to integrate some of the features of the app. I would like to iterate further and improve some of the features of the app, as well as try and encourage users to distance themselves from the technology and figure out exactly how the Olive app could do that. Thank you so much for making it all the way through the end of this presentation. I hope you found it useful. Much obliged.